I guess this was always going to be a point of discussion, wasn't it? Yes, here at Cynical Apex Commentaries, today we are discussing the YouTube copyright system, or rather the flaw involved in it that allows it to be abused. As in, it is enabled to be abused by creators who file false DMCA claims, which indeed are illegal, which we'll get into more later. However, before we begin, I must go through some of the situations we have seen in recent times that have led to this moment. Well, late last year you had the Pokimane / Bo Black situation where Pokimane copyright striked one of Bo Black's videos, which was a timeline of sorts of her arguments with Keemstar, and him basically compiling them and giving people context through timeline. We'll get more into that later. However, what I must explain to you first of all is what exactly is a DMCA takedown. A DMCA takedown is simply put where the owner of a copyrighted material or content on YouTube decides to exercise the rights granted to him by the Digital Millennium Copyright Act, which in itself is actually 2 additional provisions given to people from WIPO, or the World Intellectual Property Organization, from 1996. The DMCA Act itself was actually made into law or incorporated into law in 1998, where you can legally take down an infringing topic or content, which in the sense is it's there to stop direct uploads of your own content without any fair use concepts in it, like commentary, review, parody, or critique of that content. So, in this sense, just basically straight re-uploads are eligible to be DMCA claimed, which is something that Nadex did before which is a situation I forgot to mention in this, but yes, Nadex is another situation where the DMCA was rightly used. However, his channel has been terminated by YouTube due to means like apparently he had some sort of connection with the King Cut channel that was straight ripping his content, re-uploading it for its own benefit as well as monetizing it. That is the sort of thing that DMCA is meant to stop. Now, going back to the Pokimane situation, Pokimane believed that the lack of commentary on Bo Black's video compilation, and also her instance with Davsef, which was part of what kicked everything into gear in regards to her being criticized, was against fair use. And in the Bo Black's case, she actually does have a valid point, and I do firmly believe that she was acting in good faith with her claim on that, which is another key element that I'm going to discuss now. In good faith basically means that you're following common law and what is accepted as being reasonable practices, and that's what I fully believe she was doing in that case, because of the simple fact that, yes, whilst Keemstar brought up the fact that news is protected under fair use, there are 2 things that he actually forgot to mention in why general news is indeed protected, which is what we'll see in the general open media as well as on his own show, Drama Alert, and how that is actually not relevant entirely to what Bo Black did with his compilation video. The first point is this: news channels always, or most of the time, will give context via commentary. They will say, here's the incidents, they'll show clips, and they'll discuss the clip through it by giving a timeline of what happened and when it happened. Bo Black will admit himself that he did not do that in his original video. And the second thing is that with news, and why you can't exactly transition it entirely to YouTube, is that the news stations like NBC, CBS, ABC, they always record their own footage, which is something that YouTubers don't necessarily do unless they are the ones actually commentating. The footage that they get is from the creators that initially created themselves. In this case, that was Pokimane. So, as I said, because of the lack of commentary, that did open up the grey area in regards to DMCA, and gave her a window in which she believed she was in the right to file a claim. However, she would release the claim after discussing it with Bo Blacks, and even involving an attorney into the discussions if what Bo Blacks has posted on Twitter is correct. And in that case, the claim was released, which is something that is available to claimants via the DMCA process on YouTube. However, what the flaw is that it is left up to the claimant themselves to decide. So they can arbitrarily say, hey, no, this isn't fair use, and I would like this video to stay down. And they can file legal papers in order to make sure that it stays down. If they don't, then YouTube will ultimately, after a certain period of time, which I believe is 30 days, will put it back up. And the strike will be removed from the channel. Now, that arbitrary element is a flaw, and that is something that we have seen abused by various creators. Nonetheless, most recently, Just Destiny in his DMCA claim on Lieutenant Cobra. Now, with that, Cobra basically did a commentary video where he reviewed and critiqued the content that Just Destiny was making. Now, he did potentially defame him, but that's irrelevant, as I've actually seen the video and nothing there was necessarily defamation. And I'll show you right now a couple of cases in regards to defamation. And not just that, but also, before we discuss the next portion of this video, the actual consequences that are related to false DMCA claims. As you can see right above or on the screen, Lieutenant Cobra's commentary on it falls under fair use in regards to the criticism element of it, even though there was a somewhat inference that of Just Destiny being a pedo or a nonce, as he used the British terminology for it. I actually don't think he was directly inferring that Just Destiny was a nonce or a pedo. Rather, he was just saying that the actions, or the wording of what Just Destiny was saying in his videos in regards to the young children could make it come across as being such for those who don't quite understand the nuance or anything regarding what Just Destiny's content is about and how he was critiquing them. But of course, you've got fan bases that will jump with that, and they will, of course, go and try to infer that A equals B when the correlation isn't necessarily there. Rather, I don't necessarily think he seriously meant it either. I do agree with him when he was saying it was more in a joking manner. Now, as you'll also see here, there are two cases. There's a Michael Crook case, and there was a case involving the Straight Pride group that was around like 5-6 years ago, and them false DMCAing certain parties, and in fact they were sued for it, which is something that Lieutenant Cobra could have done if he wished to file a counterclaim or a countersuit, as Just Destiny sent legal cease and desist documentation to him. Now, in regards to that, I've never fully believed that the law firm was actually a valid or viable law firm. Not just because of the fact that their address was a little sketchy, And even though the letter was formally done and could easily be seen as a legal notice, I felt like the fact that there was, when you actually look at the website, there wasn't really enough information there about the lawyers in question. As in, there wasn't even a biography of him, which is actually standard for most law firms to put a biography up there to actually show the credentials of the esquires or lawyers that they have in their business, which it just rose a red flag to me. It was almost like, trust me, I'm an attorney. And then it's like when you ask someone for proof of them being an attorney, they're like, no, just trust me. So yes, that did make me raise an eyebrow and think, hang on, why is he going on like this? And yes, there is actually a defamation form on YouTube that Just Destiny should have used. And in Keemstar's interview, I do believe that he admitted that he probably should have handled it differently and would have if he had his time back. However, he was just frustrated and angry at the time, which doesn't actually justify the false DMCA claim. And the fact that he doesn't have remorse, which leads me to firmly believe that he was acting in bad faith or against what the common laws and principles are when it comes to the fair use doctrine and what is being accepted in court as being fair use. We saw that in the H3H3 case where he was sued and actually won that case. Now, going on about that, there is a way that Lieutenant Cobra could have filed a countersuit. However, he would have had to have done it through the San Mateo County, or rather the District Court of Northern California, as even though he isn't in the jurisdiction of the United States, YouTube, or the service provider in this case, is, and via their own documentation, any case where the claimant or the counterclaimant is outside of the U.S. jurisdiction, they are brought in via YouTube's own jurisdiction. So we'll just show that to you right now. As you can see here, YouTube's own documentation would have required Lieutenant Cobra, should he have wished to file a counterclaim, to have gone through the processes and jurisdiction of the District Court of Northern California, which encompasses the San Mateo County, that the San Bruno-based YouTube is in. Now, the District Court of Northern California, sorry, I'm stumbling on my words here, is based in San Francisco. Now, looking at it this way, this is part of the reason why I feel like Just Destiny did release the claim, because he knew that he probably didn't have much of a ground to stand on. In fact, it's not even a case of probably. He 100% didn't have any ground to stand on legally, and that his DMCA claim was, in fact, false. Rather, if he did want to sue or claim it for anything, he should have gone for defamation. But even then, as the fair use doctrine has dictated, the actual critique and the limits on what the critique can actually state is very subjective, and it could easily still be seen as fair use, or rather an opinion, and not meant to be conveyed as fact based off of the wording that Lieutenant Cobra had used in his own video. Anyway, more on this in a part 2, because rather I don't want to make like a 30-40 minute single video on this. I'm going to cut it up into parts. Part 2 will be up later today, of course, but for now, I'll see you then. Bye.